We begin the Gemara today on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis at the Mishnah on the bottom of the Amud. Zok Teilige Mishnah. Achas Eimeres Meis. There are two wives here, and one wife is saying that her husband passed away. And V'achas Eimeres Lo Meis. The second wife comes and says that he did not pass away. Zushe Eimeres Meis, the one that said that her husband passed away, Tenase, she can get remarried. As we learned before, a woman is believed to say about her husband that he died. And v'titul ksubasa, as we learned before as well, she also takes her ksuba money. V'zushay meres loy meis, the second wife that says that the husband did not die, loy tinase v'loy titul ksubasa, so she cannot get remarried and does not take a ksub either. Achas meres meis, one wife said that the husband died, v'achas meres nerak, and the second wife comes and says that he was actually killed. Rav Meir so Rav Meir says, hoyelu makchishay zuazu, since these two wives are contradicting one another, so they can't get married. None of them could get married. So in other words, Rav Meir is saying that when one contradicts the other, we can't trust either of them. So there's an obvious question here. If so, in the first part of the Mishnah, where one says the husband died and one said the husband did not die, they're also contradicting one another. Why did Rav Meir not argue there and say that we don't trust the one that says that the husband died? So the Gemara will ask this question. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Aimrim, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon say, Hoyel v'zu moides she'en kayam, since both of these women, both of these wives agree that the husband is not alive, the only question is, how did he die? Did he just die or did he get killed? Yunasu, they can both get married. The fact that they contradict each other does not matter. One cannot contradict what the other is saying because the Eitzara is not trusted, a second wife that is not trusted to say anything that will affect the other wife. Based on what we learned already before, that Atzara is one of those women that can't say Eidus for the other wife, anything about for the other wife. So therefore, over here, the contradiction does not matter. So both of them are saying the husband died, just one is saying he died, one is saying he got killed. So therefore, they can both get remarried. So according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, they are the Tanoim of the first case of the Mishnah. When one says he died and one says he's still alive, so the one that says he died can go get remarried. The one that says that he's still alive can't get remarried. Eid oimemeis, if one aid comes and says that the husband is passed away. Then another aid says that he did not pass away. Isha oimeres meis, visha oimeres loimeis. One wife says that the husband died, and another wife says that the husband did not die, which is basically the same as the first case of the Mishnah. I mean, as Taisus explains, if it's just talking about two women, not two wives, then there's no chiddush in this case over the case that it says right before, one aid said he died and one aid said he did not die. So over here, Isha v'Isha means two wives. So over here the Mishnah says, Hareizu loy tinase. So none of them could get married. As the Gemara will explain, this does not fit with what it says in the beginning of the Mishnah. Rather, this is going according to Rab Meir. So the Gemara. So what did it say in the first case of the Mishnah? One wife says he died, one wife said he did not die. So the one that said that he did not die cannot get remarried. So Taima, the reason why she can't get remarried is the Amr alay meis, because she says that her husband didn't die. Ha ishtike. If she was quiet, she said nothing. Tinase. Seemingly, you could understand from the Mishnah that then even the second wife could get married based on the testimony of the first wife that said that he died. Question, however, is the rule is that one wife cannot say testimony for a second wife regarding the death of the husband. That's a previous mission that we learned there, that because wives, co-wives, there's a hatred amongst them, so one is not believed to say Eidus about the other that the husband passed away. So how can we understand here from this Mishnah that one wife is believed to say that the husband passed away and is believed not only for herself, but is also believed regarding the co-wife, the Torah? Answers the Gemara, the case where the second wife says that the husband did not die, there's a unique chiddush in the fact that she cannot go and get remarried. In other words, what the Gemara is saying is, definitely, even if the second wife was quiet, she cannot get remarried because we can't use the edus of the other wife for her, as the Gemara asked. But why does it say in the Mishnah this case where the second wife is saying that the husband did not die? Because there's a unique chiddush in this case that she can't get remarried. What is that? I would think to say, Hamayis. The truth is that the husband did die. Like the first wife said that he died, and really he did die. And the fact that the second wife comes and says testimony that he did not die, why is she saying this? She's only saying this to mess up things for the other wife. That she's coming to say the husband didn't die yet and you can't get remarried. She wants the other wife to be stuck. If the first wife is stuck, she herself is also going to be stuck. She also can't get remarried. But we say v'tomus nafsha and plishtim kamra. She's only saying this to do it, the trouble and the suffering for the first wife. That's how much she hates her. And even though she's going to suffer herself, but like we find the lashon of the pasuk, tomus nafsha and plishtim, I'm ready to die, even though I'm going to die. But as long as the plishtim will die with me, she says, let the first wife suffer, and even though I'm going to suffer along with her. So over here, the fact that she's coming and saying, after we already heard the testimony from the first wife that the husband died, and we trust that first wife regarding herself to get remarried, and now the second wife comes along and says that he did not die, there's room for us to think and say that the second wife is only saying this because she's jealous and she wants to cause trouble for the first wife. And therefore we don't trust her at all, to the extent that we would think that even she can also get remarried. Kamash Malon, that's the chiddush here in the Mishnah, that even in this case where she said that the husband did not die, and there's a basis to say that she's just trying to make trouble, still she cannot get remarried when she says that the husband did not die. Achas eimeres chulu. Then the Mishnah says one said the husband died, another one said the husband got killed. Rab Meir says they're contradicting each other, we don't believe any of them. Why wouldn't Rab Meir argue also in the Reisha when they're contradicting one another, when one says the husband died and one says he did not? So Rabbi Elazar says, yes, it's true that Rab Meir also argues on the first case of the Mishnah, even though he chose to argue in the second case, because there's more of a chiddush in the second case, the contradiction between them is not as strong. Both agree that the husband is not alive anymore. The only question is how he died. But even in the first case, Rab Meir will also disagree. Rab Yehuda, Rab Shimoni, and the Tana of the first case of our Mishnah is Rab Yehuda and Rab Shimon. Rab Meir disagrees. Rab Yechanan says, Afil etayim Rab Meir. We can say that Rab Meir agrees to the first case of the Mishnah. That over there, even though there's a contradiction between them, the one that said that the husband died can go and get married. Because over there, Rab Meir would agree. A woman that comes and says that the husband did not die, that kind of testimony is not considered to be a contradiction at all. A woman comes and says edus, it's not an acceptable edus. The whole edus of a woman that Chachamim were misakin, that it should be accepted, is a woman that comes and says about her husband that he died. So when the woman comes and says that he did not die, we don't even listen to her at all. That's not considered to be contradicting the edus of the first wife that said that he did die. But if she comes and says he died, but different, the story happened different than when you say he died, I say he got killed, her edus to say that he got killed is something that we do have to listen to. That's part of the takon of Chachamim, to listen to a woman when she says edus about her husband that he died or got killed. So over here, in this case, only in the second case of the Mishnah, did Rab Meir argue, and he says there's a contradiction. But in the first case, he agrees to what the Tanna Kama said. So the Gemara now asks on this, Tanan, what did we learn in the last case of the Mishnah? When there's a contradiction, one aid said the husband died, another one said he did not die. One wife says that the husband did die, and another wife says the husband did not die. So here the Mishnah says, unlike what it said in the beginning of the Mishnah, here the Mishnah says that she cannot get married. None of them can get remarried. Now, according to Rabbi Elazar, who is the Tana of this seif of the Mishnah? In the Reisha of the Mishnah it said that the one that said that the husband died could get remarried. Here it says that they cannot get married. Who is this? So Stame Rab Meir. The last case of the Mishnah, it's saying the case without a name, but this is really Rab Meir speaking here. Rab Meir says whenever there's a contradiction, none of them are believed and none of them could get remarried. So that's according to Rabbi Elazar's interpretation, that Rab Meir holds whenever there's any kind of contradiction, including when one wife says that the husband did not die, none of them could get remarried. So this is Rab Meir. But Rabbi Yechanan said that in this case, where the contradiction is that one said he died and one said he did not die, the one that said he did not die is not believed at all. So who is this last case of the Mishnah going according to? So Kashya, this is a question. So the Gemara concludes Kashya. This remains a question according to Rabbi Yechanan. A woman went, she and her husband overseas. She comes back and says, Meis Bailey, my husband died. Tinase, we trust her, she can get remarried. V'tita ksubasa, and she gets her ksuba money. V'tzarasa asura. However, even though we trust her edus for herself, but we do not accept her edus for her tzara, for the second wife, to go and get remarried. As we learned before, tzara cannot say edus for one another. So if this second wife was a Bas Yisrael, a Kayin, and she's married to a Kayin, she can continue eating truma. We don't accept the words of the first wife to the extent we consider her to be fully married to this husband with no doubt, and therefore she can still eat truma. Divrei Rav Tarfon. This is Rav Tarfon's opinion. Rabbi Akiva says, Ein zu derech moitziasa midei aveda. This is not a way to make sure that we're taking her out of doing any aveda here. We have to be machmer on both sides of this. So the only way we make sure that she doesn't do an aveda is the following. Asura linase. On one hand, we're going to be stringent and not allow the second wife to get remarried. We don't trust the words of the first wife that the second wife could get remarried. But at the same time, we're doubtful if the husband is still alive, and therefore, v'asura melecha b'truma. She will be forbidden of eating the truma if the husband is a kayin. A similar machlekes, or basically the same machlekes in a similar case, Amra meis baili. So this woman comes back from overseas and she says her husband passed away. V'achakach meis chami. And then she says, besides that, also my father-in-law passed away. So as we learned before in Daf Kuf Yud Zayin, one of the women that are not believed to say edus regarding someone's wife, someone's husband that he passed away, is a daughter-in-law. A daughter-in-law cannot say edus that her mother-in-law's husband, the father-in-law, passed away. So over here, this woman said edus two things, that her husband passed away and that her father-in-law passed away. So tinase v'titel ksubasa. She herself can get remarried and she can take her ksuba. She's believed regarding herself to say her husband passed away. V'chamaisa asura. However, her mother-in-law is forbidden of getting remarried. We don't accept this edus for her mother-in-law to be able to get remarried. Now again, the same machlokes. Haisa. Now just one more point here. Now she points this out here, and we learned this already before as well. The chiddush over here is that even though we're trusting her to say edus that she's no more a daughter-in-law because her husband passed away, so she's not even a daughter-in-law anymore. Nevertheless, we don't believe her regarding the edus on her past mother-in-law, because she could be saying this only because of that hatred that there is between her and her mother-in-law, that if her husband shows back up, she doesn't want her mother-in-law to continue criticizing her to her husband, and therefore she's trying to do something to mess up her mother-in-law. That's the explanation that the Gemara said earlier. Now, as we said before, what if it's a case that Haisa Bas Yisrael Lekayin? If this mother-in-law is a Bas Yisrael and she's married to a Kayin, and we're not accepting the edus of the daughter-in-law regarding the father-in-law's death, so Teichel Betruma, Divrei Rav Tarfon. Rav Tarfon says we're so sure, we have no doubts about this, and therefore she can continue eating truma. Rabbi Akiva argues and says, Ein zu derech metzia midei aveda. This is not a way to make sure that we're taking her out from any aveda. Rather, what do you have to do? You have to be stringent on both sides. On one hand, we don't allow it to get remarried. We do not accept the edus that the father-in-law passed away. But on the other hand, we are doubtful about this. It could be that he did pass away, and therefore we do not allow her to eat truma if she's married, if he's a kohen. So basically, in the Mishnah here, we have these two arguments between Rab Tarfon and Rab Akiva with the same exact concept. That's only a difference in the case when we have a woman that says edus and she's not trusted. One case is that she's not trusted because it's a tzara. A woman is not trusted to say edus for a second wife, that her husband passed away. And the other case is that she's not trusted to say edus for her mother-in-law. And in both cases, you have this machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rab Tarfon, whether if she's a Bas Yisrael married to a Kohen, are we doubtful that maybe he passed away and therefore she can't eat truma? Or Rab Tarfon says, no, we're not doubtful at all and she still could eat truma. Says the Gemara Tzricha, we need to say the machlokes in both of these cases. Why? If it would only say the argument regarding the first case, where it's speaking about a co-wife that's saying edus, and we don't trust her at all for this. So, I would tell you only here in this case, Rav Tarfon said that we don't at all accept the edus of the co-wife, and we have no doubt whatsoever. When we look at the co-wife, we say that we consider the husband to be 100% alive. We don't accept her edus at all. Why? Mishum de gufa. because this co-wife saying Eidos is completely not accepted for the second wife. Why? Because the reason why there's a hatred between them is because one brings pain to the other outside of the gufa, pain in the physical body, meaning that they're both fighting over the attention and the time and the relationship with their husband. So therefore, such a deep hatred that there could be here, so this is a very strong reason that we do not accept the Eidos of the tzara at all. We have no doubts about this whatsoever. And therefore, Bas Yisrael married to a Kayin could continue eating truma. But when it comes to a mother-in-law, there's also a reason for hatred there, but the tzaira mili dalma. Over there, the source of the hatred is just a criticism of the mother-in-law that speaks to her son, but it's not that kind of a rivalry that there is between two wives. So over here, maybe here Rabbi Akiva, Rab Tarfon that is, agrees to Rabbi Akiva that even though we don't accept the edus of this wife, of this daughter-in-law rather, regarding the mother-in-law, that she can go and get remarried, but on the other hand, we don't reject her edus altogether. And we are doubtful about this, that possibly the husband did die and therefore we should not let her eat truma, and Rab Tarfon would agree to Rabbi Akiva. And then on the reverse is the same thing. V'yit mebaha. If it would only say the machlekes of Rab Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva regarding this case over here of the daughter-in-law saying, "Hey, this for the mother-in-law." Baha kam Rabbi Akiva. Over here, Rabbi Akiva says that she won't be able to eat truma because we're not 100% sure that we can't trust her edus. The hatred between them is not so strong. Avol bahach over here by two wives by a tzara. Rab Tarfon. I would say that Rabbi Akiva agrees to Rab Tarfon that the hatred between them is so strong that we don't have any doubts about this and we don't accept the edus of a co-wife at all. Tzriche, that's what the Mishnah said, both cases. Talk to Gemara, Amar Rav Yudah Amar Shmuel, halache Rab Tarfon. We paskin like Rab Tarfon. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, afanan nami tanine. We also learned this as well in a Mishnah later over here in Amud Beis. We could see from that Mishnah that we paskin like Rab Tarfon, that says that we have no doubts about this whatsoever. When one wife says, hey, this is about another, so regarding the second wife, the husband, we consider him to be alive 100%. Where do we see this? Because the Mishnah later says as follows. A woman that goes overseas with her husband, and there was a status, there was a chazakah that she had no children. And she comes back and says, Nitn li ben b'medinas hayam, that Hashem gave me a child overseas. But then she says, Meiz bini, my son first passed away, v'achakach baili, and then my husband passed away. Nemenes, she's believed to say this. Why? Because by saying that her husband passed away, by saying that her son passed away first, and then her husband, that means that at the time that her husband passed away, there were no children, and therefore she has to do yibum. So she's not changing the chazakah, the status that she had in the beginning when she left. When she left town, she also had no children. So her status at that point was that she would need yibum if her husband passes away. So now when she comes and tells us she had a child but he passed away, so she's not changing her status. So therefore she's believed to say that her husband passed away and she's up for yibum. However, if she says, Baili v'achakach b'ni, my husband passed away first and then my son passed away, so now, besides saying that her husband passed away, she's coming to say something changing her original status. She left with the status of not having any children and she would be chayiv to have yibum. And now she's coming and saying that she had a child that passed away later and she needs no yibum. She's mutter to get married to anybody. Eino nemenes. We do not believe her. But at the same time, even though we don't believe her, and we say that she should be up for yivum, that's her previous chazakeh, but v'chayshishin lidvareha, we do take into account what she's saying, that possibly it's true that her son that she says she had, passed away afterwards, and therefore v'chayletzes v'loy misyabemes. So therefore, we only allow her to do chalitze and not yibum. So over here we are sort of doubtful regarding what she was saying. So the Gemara is medayik, the lashon of this Mishnah. So lidvareha hu dechayshishin. Over here, she's saying edus about herself. So yes, she's saying something against the chazakeh, and therefore we don't accept it. But because she's saying edus about herself, so therefore we're doubtful about this, and we don't allow her to do yibum. But from this we can understand if the Mishnah uses the term lidvareha, so it's coming to exclude something. So that means, but when it comes to one wife saying eidos, and we would want to accept this eidos regarding the second wife, regarding the second wife, we don't accept the eidos of the first wife at all. We're not chayshish, we're not concerned about, we don't pay attention to that edus at all, including regarding a Bas Yisrael married to a Kayin, that we consider the husband to still be alive 100% and she can still continue eating truma, like Rab Tarfon said. Shma Mina, this proves Rab Tarfon's opinion as well. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Kiddush achas mechomesh noshim. A person married one of 5 women. But when you deya and the husband does not know, is a Kiddush. Who it is that he was Mekadosh. Kol achas imedes, each one of these 5 women come and say, Oisi Kiddush, it's me that he got married to. And now, if he decides he doesn't want to be married to them, he could. If he wants, he can just marry all of them. But if he decides he doesn't want to marry them, noisen get l'chol achas v'achas. He's going to have to give a get, because there's a doubt about this. He has to give a get to each one of them. Sorry. Umaniach ksube beinayim. And then the money for the ksube that comes with a get, he doesn't have to give to each one of them separately. Rather, he just puts the money of the ksube between them, umistalik, and he removes himself from the story, and they will fight it out between themselves who gets that money. Divrei Rav Tarfon, this is Rav Tarfon's opinion. Rabbi Akiva says, and the Gemara, this is why the Gemara is bringing this here, Mishnah that is, because this is a machlokes similar between Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, similar to what we had before. This is not a way to take this person out of an aveda. He's giving a get, but he may not be paying the ksubah to the right woman. He's going to have to give a get, and he has to give a ksubah to each and every one of them. As we'll see in the Gemara, this is a knas that he has to give for each and every one of them. Similar machlokes goes alechad michamisha. Person stole from one of 5 people. Ve'en yedeya meiz the gazal, and he doesn't remember who it is that he stole from. Now each one of them say, Oisi gazal. It's from me that he stole this money. So what does he now do? Maniach gzeile b'neihem. So he puts the money that he stole between them. And when he returns it, he puts it between them. Umistalik. And he just leaves and he lets them fight it out. Divrei Rab Tarfon. This is Rab Tarfon's opinion. Rabbi Akiva says, Ein zu derech moitzi midei aveda. This is not a way to take him out of an aveda. Achi yishalem l'chol echad ve'echad. Rather, he has to pay all of them for this gzeile. Okay, so the Gemara now will focus on the cases of this Mishnah here. So the Gemara says, Kiddush Katani. What is the case that it says in the Mishnah? That the husband here was Mekadosh, one of 5 wives. Ba'al loy Katani. But it does not say that it was Baal, that he already had marital relations with one of these 5 wives. So Kiddushin is always the first stage of marriage. He gives her a ring or whatever the Kiddushin is. And Baal is the second stage of marriage, when he lives with her. So the Mishnah here seems to be saying that this halacha that Rab Tarfon says, that he only has to give the money of the ksubah for one of them, that's because he was only mekadosh one of these 5, and he doesn't know who. What if he had actually relations with one of the 5, and he doesn't know who it is? So maybe it seems like from the Mishnah here, Rab Tarfon would agree to Rav Akiva that he can't just give ksubah to one of them and leave. Once you boil one of these 5, so as Rashi here says, so because he already had married relations with one of them, so this is something which would be a gnai, it's a disgrace for this woman that she'll have to leave this husband that just goes ahead and divorces her, and she doesn't even get any money from the ksubah. So by Baal, in a case where he actually had relations with one of this woman, Rab Tarfon would agree that he has to give all of them. That's the diak of the Mishnah when it says Kiddush and not Baal. Now, in the next case of the Mishnah, Gazal Katani, here it says that the story was that he stole money from one of 5 people. Lokach loy Katani. It does not say that he went and he bought something from one of these 5 people, and it's not clear who he bought from and who he has to pay. So over here again, the diak is that when it says Gazal, that because there's a gzeila, he went and did an isser and stole, that maybe that's the only reason why Rabbi Akiva says that he has to reimburse all 5 of them. But in a case where it was lokach, you could be medayik from the Mishnah if he just simply bought something and he forgot who he bought it from. Over here, he didn't do any isser. Rabbi Akiva would agree that he can just put the money down, and they have to fight it out between themselves. So really, if you think about this, these 2 diyukim in the Mishnah here are sort of opposites from one another. On one hand, it's saying kiddush, that is. Kiddush is when the husband did something which will not cause any disgrace. On the other hand, when it comes to the next case, it doesn't say the case of lokach, which is something which has no isser attached to it, but it uses gazal, which is a case where there's going to be a isser, which would be similar to Baal. Again, Baal is a case where there's something disgraceful that would come out of this, and Gzeila is a disgraceful story. Gzeila is a case of a isser. Rather, the Mishnah in the first case chooses to talk about Kiddush, which is a story where he simply forgot who he was Mekadesh, but he never was boil anybody yet. But in the second case, it chooses to talk about a disgraceful story, a story of an Isser. So why does the Mishnah do this? And then here the Gemara says it would come out that we don't know who the Tana of our Mishnah is. Mani Masnisen. So who is the Tana of our Mishnah that chooses the first case as Kiddush and the second case as Gazal? It will not be the Tanakama and not Rab Shimon ben Elazar that we see in the following Braisa. The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa. Rab Shimon ben Elazar says, Rab Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva did not argue about this. If a person was Mekadesh, only the first stage of marriage, only Mekadesh, 1 out of 5 wives, and he doesn't know who it is that he was Mekadesh, so everybody would agree, he could just put down the money of the Ksuba or Mistalik and he could remove himself. Because it's not so disgraceful for these women, he wasn't actually boil any of them. Alma nechlaku, where is the case of their argument? Al Shabal, if he already had relations with one of them. So over here, he can still do the same thing, put the money down of the Ksuba for one of them and leave. Rabbi Akiva says once he was boil one of them, so over here it's disgraceful to leave a woman without giving her a Ksuba when he was boil her. So that's the reason why over here he's going to have to go and pay every single one of them. That's the first point that Rab Shimon ben Elazar says. So the argument is specifically in a case where there's a disgrace, and that is when he was boil one of them. And similar, there's no argument between Rab Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva. If the case was that he bought something from one of 5 people, and he doesn't know who it is he bought it from, he can put the money for what he bought for this transaction between them, and he could just leave, because again he did nothing wrong here, and there was no Isser. Where is the argument? If he stole from 5 people and he did an Isser, so over here, Rab Tarfon says even in this case he can still just pay the money for one of them and leave. And Rabbi Akiva says that you'll have to pay up the Gzela for every single one of them. So that is what it says clearly here, that Rab Shimon ben Elazar is saying that the argument is by Baal and by Gazal. That's not what it said in our Mishnah, as the Gemara pointed out before. In our Mishnah it said Kiddush is the first case of the argument, and the second case is Gazal. Now the Gemara points out further, so Mani, I've skipped a line here, let me go back up a second. Mide ka'amar Rab Shimon ben Elazar b'Kiddush v'lokach loy pligi. If Rab Shimon ben Elazar is saying that there is no argument regarding the case of Kiddush and Lokach, they're only arguing the case of Baal and Gazal, where there was a disgrace or a Isser. So Meklad Tanakama Sava Pligi. From this we could understand Rab Shimon ben Elazar is arguing on a previous opinion, the Tanakama, that says that they're actually arguing only in this case of Kiddush and Lokach. When there was no disgrace and there's no Isser, there is the argument between Rab Tarfon and Rab Akiva. So now the question is, if so, Mani, who is our Mishnah? If our Mishnah follows the Tanakama, so listen to Kiddush v'Lokach. So then our Mishnah should say that the argument is in the case of Kiddush and Lokach, where there was no disgrace and there was no Isser, and there's the argument whether we still obligate him to put down the money for each one of them. And Rab Shimon ben Elazar, if the Tana of our Mishnah is Rab Shimon ben Elazar, lisni Baal v'Gazal. So then the argument is only in a case where there was a disgrace or an Isser done, and there the argument is whether we obligate him to put the money down for all of them, or Rab Tarfon says even when an Isser is done and even when there's a disgrace, he does not have to put down the money for all of them. So who is our Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, La'olam Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Really our Mishnah is Rab Shimon ben Elazar, that says that the argument is only in the case of Baal and Gazal. Umay Kiddush, when our Mishnah says that it was Mekadesh, one of 5 women, what is it speaking about? Kiddush bibiyah. One of the ways to be Mekadesh a woman is by having relations with her. And that's what our Mishnah is speaking about. He was Mekadesh with Bia, and therefore it's disgraceful to let this woman go if he's giving her a get without giving her ksuba money. And therefore this is going according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Now the Gemara explains why the Mishnah brings the argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rab Tarfon regarding both cases. Regarding the case of the marriage, and he's not sure he got married to, and regarding the case of the Gzela, and he's not sure who he stole from. So the Gemara, Tana Kiddush lediacha koicha de Rabbi Akiva. It brings the case of Kiddush, which we just explained means that he was Mekadesher with Bia. This is coming to tell you how strong Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that he has to give the money of Ksubah to each one of them. And the Chiddush here is as follows: the Afal Gav, the Surah de Rabbanon Ovad, what he did when he was Mekadosh with Bia, one of them, so what he did is only Asam de Rabbanon. Minat Torah, you have three ways to be Mekadosh an Isha: Kesef, Shtar, or Bia. But with the Rabbanon, there's a takana, we had this earlier in the Masechta as well, that you're not supposed to be Mekadosh a woman with Bia. So he did it Isam de Rabbanon, and nevertheless, even though it's only an Isam de Rabbanon, Konis. But there's still a Knas here. That was a Chiddush in this case, according to Rabbi Akiva. On the other hand, Tone Gozal, it says the case when he stole from one of five people, to let you know how far Rab Tarfon's opinion goes, the Afagav the Isura de Raisa Avad, even though this person went and did Isma de Raisa, stole from one of five people, and we don't know who that is, Loik Konis. There's no Knas that he has to go and pay all of them back. He has to just put the money down, and whoever is the rightful owner will have to go and get it. Zok Teilige Mishneh, Ha'isha, Shaholcha, Hi, Ubayla, Lemedina Sayam. A woman that went, she and her husband overseas, Ubna Imam, and she went with her son with them. So what this Mishnah is going to be talking about is, let's first see what was the status of this woman when she left. She has a chazakah, a status, a chazakah before. And now, her edus that she's saying later, if she's saying an edus that goes along with that chazakah, we will accept her edus. But if she's saying an edus to uproot her previous chazakah, we will not accept her edus. So over here, she went overseas with her husband and her son. So that means that she had a son with her, so her chazakah is that if her husband dies, she needs no yibum because she has a son. He has a son. And now, Ubaz v'amra, she comes back and says, Meis baili, my husband died, v'achakach meis bini. And after that, my son passed away. Nemenes, she's believed. If her son passed away after her husband, so when the husband died, there was still a son there. There's no yibum, so she's keeping the exact same status as was before. She's believed to say that her husband passed away and she remains in the same status as before. However, meis bini v'achakach meis baili, if she comes and says that her son died first, and now her husband died, so when her husband died, there were no children left, so now she's changing her status to say that she's chayiv and yibum, ain't a menace. She's not believed. And therefore, she should need yibum, like her previous status. But nevertheless, even though we don't accept her edus fully, she's going against the chazakah, but we still take her words into account. She'll be required to have chalitza done, but we don't allow her to do yibum. A similar, again, this is all based on the same klal, whether she's uprooting a prior chazakah or not. Nitin lok ben b'medina sayam. So here's a woman that left overseas with her husband without any children. And she comes, so her status is that she would need yibum if her husband dies. And now she comes and says that Nitin lok ben b'medina sayam, she had a son overseas. And v'amra, but she says, Meis bini v'achkach meis baili. My son died first and then my husband died. Nemenes. So she's believed. She's not changing her previous status. Her status in the beginning was she would not need any yibum, and she's saying the same thing now. The child I had died first, and then my husband died, so I don't need any yibum. But meis baili v'achakach meis bini. But if she's saying the opposite, that my husband died first and then my son died, meaning that she would require again v'achakach meis bini. So now she's saying she would not require yibum. So she's changing her previous status. In the beginning, she did need yibum, and in a menace, she's not going to be believed to change her previous chazakah. But again, we are concerned, we do take into account the words that she's saying, that her son died last, and therefore she could only do chalitza and not yibum. Now, another case of a woman that went overseas with her husband, and her status is when she left, that her husband had no brother to do yibum. So if her husband dies, she's mutter to get married to anybody because there is no brother here to do yibum. And she comes and says, Nitin liyabim medina sayam, that when I was overseas, so my mother-in-law had another, or my father-in-law that is, had another son, and now I have a yavam that can do yibum. But now she says, Amra meis baili v'achakach meis yevami. So now she comes and says, either she says that her husband died, and then the yavam that is died, or yevami v'achakach meis baili, or the yavam died first, and then my husband died. It doesn't make a difference which one died first or second, but the point is now, the brother that could have done yibum is not alive anymore. Nemenes. So she's believed. She's not changing from her previous status when she left, that there was no brother to do yibum, and now she's coming and saying as well that the brother that I say was born also died. She went with her husband and the brother, which would be a potential yavam. and they all went overseas together. So now, her status when she left is that she would have to do Yibum if her husband passed away. Now, Omra meis baile vachkach Yevami. Now she says, my husband died and then the Yavam died. Yevami vachkach meis baile, or the Yavam died first and then my husband died. Again, the order of who died first or second doesn't really matter here. But the point is, she's saying that now I have no Yavam to do Yibum anymore for me, so she's changing her status, and in a menace. So she will not be believed. And now the Mishnah explains why is she not believed. True, she's changing her status, but just like we say that she's believed to say regarding her husband that died, we allow her to get remarried, shouldn't we also believe her regarding a Yavam, which is sort of a potential husband that he died and she should be able to get remarried? So the Mishnah explains, no. A woman is not believed to say that her Yavam died, to be able to get remarried. This whole kula, that Chachamim were lenient, that a woman is believed to say about her husband that he died, was a kula, that she should not be an aguna. They only trusted her regarding her husband. Regarding a Yavam, that kula was not said. And similar, V'loi meisa achaisa shetikanis lebeisai. A woman will not be trusted to come and say that her sister that was married to someone passed away, and after her sister passes away, she's allowed to go and marry her husband. She's not believed to say that either. And also, Ve'ena ish nemen loymar meis achi sheyavim mishtay. He's not believed to say that my brother died without children, and therefore I have to do yibum for his wife. V'loi meisa ishtay sheyisa achaisa. And a man is not believed to say that my brother's wife, which is a sister, passed away, and I could go now and marry her sister. So the point is, in all these cases, we don't believe a person, an Eid Echad, or for sure a woman, or a Negei B'davar, to come and say that someone passed away. Only time Chachamim were lenient was for Aguna, and because of the reasons that we learned before, that a woman is believed to say about her husband that he passed away. So the Gemara brings now an Ibaya, and it will prove the answer, it will bring an answer to this Ibaya from our Mishnah. Rava asked Rav Nachman the following question: a person that is giving somebody a get that he should acquire this get for the wife. In other words, he never spoke to his wife about this. He never notified her or asked her permission that I'll be sending you a shliach, and this shliach is going to accept the get for you, and you'll be divorced by him accepting the get for you. He just goes and gives the get to a shliach. He appoints him to be a shliach to accept the get for the wife, and that she should be divorced that way, even before it gets to the woman's hands. B'makayim yavam, in the place where there is a yavam here, that there's a brother, and the point is that he doesn't want that she should have to go and get married to this yavam if he passes away. So now that he divorces her, she will not have to go and get married to this yavam. So maho, what's the halacha? Is this acceptable? Basically, the point of the question is, this is a shliach that you appointed for the woman without asking her. Do I say, Kivin desanyale, because this woman hates this yavam and she doesn't want to get married to him, zchusula, this is actually a merit for her, this is something positive for her, that this is going to cause that she shall be exempt to yivum, to this brother. And the rule is, v'zachin la'adam shalei b'fanav. Even without asking somebody, you could appoint someone to do a shlichus for that person if it's a schus, if it's something which is positive, it's a merit for them. So over here, the get will take effect. Or perhaps we can say, Kivin de Zimnin de Rachmale. There is sometimes that she does like this brother and she'd be happy to get married to him, and she's not ready to accept this get, that she should be exempt from getting married to this brother. So it's something negative for her. And you can't appoint a shliach, which is something that's negative for somebody without their permission, without asking them. So that's the question here. It all revolves around the fact, when you have a yavam, what's the assumption? That this woman would like to get married to this yavam, or no, she would not like to get married to him. Amalei, so the Gemara answers Tanina. We learned this over here in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, V'chayshishin lidvareha, that we're concerned about what this woman said, V'chayletzes v'loy misyabemes, and she does chalitza and not yibum. So what's the Gemara proving here? It's proving from what it said in the Mishnah. We had two cases in the Mishnah. One case was that her previous status was that she would not have to do yibum. And now she's coming and saying that she had a son that passed away after her husband passed away, and she is obligated to do yibum. Then we had the opposite case, when the previous status was that she would have to do yibum. And now she's coming to say that the son passed away first, and therefore she would not have to do yibum. So in other words, in one case, this woman is trying to bring herself to have a relation with this yavam, and in another case, she's saying an edus that will now take away this relationship with this yavam. And where do we trust her? Do we trust what she's saying? So the Mishnah said we don't trust in either case. We don't trust what she's saying because she's saying something which is uprooting the previous status. But however, the point of here is as follows. If we're going to say for sure that we know that she loves the Yavam and therefore she's ready and she wants to go get married to this Yavam, so then we should for sure not accept her words at all when she's coming to uproot her status and give herself the ability to do this mitzvah of Yibum, because we know she loves this Yavam and she's only saying it for that reason. So why would we be chayshish for her words at all? And the same thing goes in the reverse. If we're going to decide that this woman for sure does not want to get married to the Yavam, she for sure hates her. So in a case where she's uprooting her previous status, where she should have had to do Yivum, and now she's saying she does not want to do Yivum, and she's trying to separate herself from this Yavam, if we're going to decide that she hates this Yavam, we for sure should not trust her at all, because we know she's only doing it because she hates the Yavam. But in the Mishnah, though, what we saw is, in both cases, we're being stringent about this. We're chayshishin. We're concerned about what she's saying, and either way, what we say is she can't do yibum, but on the other hand, she's not free to go get married to whoever she wants. She has to do chalitza. What does that mean? That in both cases, whether she's trying to say a testimony that will allow her to marry the Yavam, whether she's saying a testimony that will reject her, she'll be rejected, so that now she does not have to marry this Yavam. Either way, there's a suffix about this, and either way, we're going to be machmer. Meaning, so we can understand from this, regarding the case that we asked before, could we assume that this wife would like to marry the Yavam or not? The answer is, there's a suffix about this, and we have to be machmer either way, so we can't really accept this get as a good get here. That's the resolution of the Gemara. So now Ravina asked Rave about this, a further question. A person that is, again, mezaka a get, he gives a get for a shliach to accept a get for the wife without telling her about it, without asking her permission. But it's a case that we know that there's an argument, there's a fight between them. So now, what's the halacha here? Kiv in this loktata ba'adei, since she's in a fight with him, do I say zuchusula? So this is something that she's very happy about, that her husband is giving her a get. Or perhaps we should say, even though there's a fight amongst them, nevertheless, niche de gufe adifla. The fact, the comfort that she could be married to a person, even if she doesn't like him, but just being married to another person is something that she's actually still interested in, and therefore the get this person gave to a shliach to accept it for his wife without her permission is nothing. You can't do something which is against her will and without notifying her. So the Gemara Tashema, I'll bring you a proof of this. The Amar Reish Lakish said regarding a woman, we say as follows: Tav lemesav tandu. It's better for her to sit two together, two bodies, melemesav armalo, than to be alone, to be lonely. So for a woman, if she's married, regardless of who it is, even if she's in a fight with him, she's happier to sit with him, and therefore the assumption is that she was not interested in this get, and therefore she can't. The husband, that is, can't appoint a shliach without letting her know that he's making a shliach, because that's a chayv, that's something which is negative for her. Abaya, similar regarding this statement that a woman is happy to be married to whoever it is. So Abaya said, the shum shemena gavra, even if her husband is tiny, he's very short, like a little ant. So she'd be so happy for the fact that she's married, now she's a married woman, and they give her a beautiful chair to sit amongst the prominent women. Rav Papa says, the naftza gavra, even if her husband does dirty work like combing wool of an animal, so nevertheless she's so happy with him that tikri b'seifa bava, she calls him to come and sit by the threshold of the house, by the door, by the opening of the house, and v'taisav, he should sit there, everybody should see her husband, she'll sit there with him. Ravashi says, the kulsa gavra, if you have a husband that there is bad lineage, there's something wrong about his yichus, nevertheless, she's happy to live with him, and she doesn't even bother him with giving her a little bit of money to have beans or lentils for the soup. Tana, when we learned about this, that v'kulan, all of these women, the fact that they're happy to be with any husband that it may be, the reason is because mizanois v'toiles b'baleya. They then go and have relations with others, but this is a cover-up for them that they're married and they have this husband that they're living with, and then when she becomes pregnant, so then this is a cover for her that she has a husband that she's married to. Hadran Allah Hayisha Shalom. This is the conclusion of the 15th Perek of Masechta Yevamos, the Perek of Hayisha Shalom.